But it ought to have components that deal with data exchange. It ought to have components that deal with interim models. It ought to have a discussion of parametrics and visualization and so on. And so we've listed these things just in kind of an order that they were lectured on, but it would, in my mind, it would be a boring presentation if this were the exact thing that everybody followed. You need to develop a story about your experience in this class that goes through and highlights all of these different topics. Okay? Now there's one on there that I didn't get wiped out, but it should have been. We have not taken any time to kind of talk about rapid prototyping. Okay? And so rapid prototyping, if you know how to get to it on your campus or here at BYU, you're welcome to do that. We have just run out of time. Hopefully you've run out of energy. If not, hopefully you've run out of dollars, because rapid prototyping here at BYU is expensive.
If we do prototype our like car body or something, is there any incentive?
No.
Don't waste your money.
Well, how much would it cost?
How much would it cost? So if you do it on the most expensive machine downstairs, you're probably talking $100 for a small car.
If you show it and do it like the Starch one, though, it would be better.
If you do it on the Starch one, then it may be $20 or something like that. And the accuracy is not really great. You know. But it's something that if you take it and if you kind of lightly sand it, if you paint the thing up, it's a nice thing to set on your desk when you go out to industry and other people walk in and say, "What is that? Where did that come from? What is that?" That was a phone. Such perfect timing. So it is something that you may want, you know, to actually do, but we're not going to worry about it. Some of these things down here, is there a logical flow to the presentation, good visual aids, grammar, did they handle question and answers in a reasonable way? Was the presentation, was it complete? You know. So right now, this is kind of the, am I missing any teams, first off? What team am I missing?
BYU team.
An all BYU team? Okay, so that gets added over here. I was thinking I missed one, but so UBC, they need to go first because their students have a final exam that they have to begin taking at 4 o'clock Utah time. So we're going to stack all UBC teams. And I think, Larissa, there's 2 individual teams.
There's 3 UBC teams.
But one of them is a BYU UBC.
3 plus the one that's messed up.
So I need to add another one here. So this will all slide. What's that?
There's
12 teams. So we will stick another UBC team in after, before the BYU NTU team. So we'll stick that in. But basically this will be the flow of the presentations, the order of them. This is where it gets very serious, okay? So listen carefully. This section of the scoring sheet, we will expect, so the sheet you have is just a working sheet. It's not the one that we're going to hand out to you. It's very similar and close. It may be identical. But this is something that you just need to be thinking about. We want you to list your team members. We want you to list the percentage of the project they did. If there are 6 people on your team and everyone carried an equal share, then I would expect this to be 1/6, 1/6, 1/6. Okay? If the work done by everyone on the team is of equal, of equal merit, okay, as evaluated by you, then I would expect you to put an A, an A, an A, an A, an A if everybody truly did A work, okay? I've done this enough years that there's always a few people on a team that either go way beyond the mark or they fall way below the mark. And we need to try to kind of even that out. We need to kind of treat that fairly.
Yeah, so what about people on a team who spent far more hours on the project, but maybe not at the request of the team? Or, you know what I mean? Like, how's that graded towards us? Like, we put less into it, but maybe not because we haven't done our part, you know?
Okay? So hopefully that's all going to come out in the wash by evaluated by the whole team. So if you look at that person and you say, that person really went beyond the mark, carried, 35% of the whole project, and I'm going to give that person an A because of that, but all of these other people did equal of what's left.
Yeah.
And we worked at that, and we did that really hard, and we contributed, then I'm going to give everyone else an A because, we didn't, we had 18 hours, they only had 4 hours of coursework, and so they had all night and day to do that and loved doing it and had fun doing it. But you don't do that. Now, if there are people that had to do that amount of work because there were slackers, then you need to kind of make sure that you give credit where credit's due. Okay? But I'm hoping that the team will actually come, because we average these things. We get them all and we compile them all together and we say, based on the team evaluation, A, B plus, A, C minus, D, or whatever. Okay, based on the team evaluation, we kind of come up with what the performance on the team actually was. Now, how does that affect the overall grade? There is a grade for the presentation, and we just let that fall across the entire team. So if the entire team stands up here and presents and they get a B for the presentation, the whole team gets a B. We don't try and split that out. What we do is there's a whole lot of points that are tied to the project. And we want to make sure that the ones that, based on this, have put in an A effort get an A allotment of those points. And those that put in a C effort get a C allotment of the project points that go throughout the semester. Does that make sense? Any questions on that? So this is very serious. You guys know how you've interacted with your team members. You know who has and has not performed well. And that has been a very good way of kind of getting the appropriate score. Okay? And then the last part of this is a self-evaluation. We want you to kind of self-evaluate yourself based on these things. Hypermesh, OptiStruct, NX or CATIA part modeling, so on down the list. And so if you were to give yourself straight down the list, all 10s, I would want to hire you as the replacement for Larissa, okay? Or Jared, or Eric, okay? If you truly felt like you were across the board excellent, give yourself 10s. If there are some things that you say, you know what, I didn't spend as much time as I could have or should have, and I end up with a 7 out of 10, that's okay. I want you to honestly record and reflect what your feeling is on the use of these tools.
This is assuming, like, if we wanted to do this, not going off of labs, just sitting down and knowing how to use it completely.
This is just kind of sitting down and using the tool. Not crutches, not anything else. It's, am I proficient doing meshing on HyperMesh? Am I proficient in doing a skeletal model? Kind of thing.
Can this TCC on
That's another thing that gets scratched off.
And Skype, because we didn't use Skype at all.
So did you use?
We used Google Hangouts.
So scratch out where it's not appropriate and replace it with something else. If you use join.me or something like that, that's fine too. Okay. So we will be able to edit and tweak that a little bit. Any questions on this evaluation? So what I would do is suggest that on this worksheet that you kind of, between today and Friday the 16th, you kind of just roll through your mind and figure out kind of how you're going to score, what you're going to score, and things like that. Okay? And that way you don't have to do a lot of thought, because during the actual presentation time, right at the end, we're going to chase all of the students out of the room. The faculty and all of the guests that are judges are going to openly discuss the first place, second place, third place presentation winners. And while that's going on, you'll be out there filling in the back part of the sheet, as well as filling in or tweaking the front part of the sheet. Okay? When you come back in, we'll basically collect these things from you. We'll build a gigantic spreadsheet. We'll average everything together. And so you will have a voice in the presentation scores, because you're evaluating your peers, and the faculty will have a voice in the evaluation of those presentations. Questions?
The presentation itself, does each person need to present something, or could it just be 1, 2, 3 people that present? Is that just up to the group?
It could be one person that presents. It could be all of them. So you get to decide that. Any other questions?
Almost time.
So at the moment, we're thinking 12 minutes. And then a couple of minutes for a question and answer. Okay? I need to kind of sit down and make sure that we have enough time to do a reasonable evaluation amongst the faculty, because the faculty will kind of pick the best presentation, second best, third best, and we want to make sure that we have time at the end of the 3-hour block to discuss that and then actually make the awards.
Is the purpose of the project to show that the team accomplished all of it, or is it to show also that each student individually could do the different?
Good question. So, if the remote students didn't hear that, the question was, is the presentation supposed to just show what the team did, or is it supposed to also show kind of what each individual student did? What has been done and done very successfully in the past is that on each of those items that are listed on the evaluation, you pick kind of the best example. We're going to show the best example of motion. And you show that and you talk about what was learned and what engineering benefit was received from that. But then you bring up another slide that maybe has 4 or 5 animations going on it, and you say, and this is kind of other things that we did. And you may have 4 minutes of animation if you were to let it run, but you just bring it up and you start the thing going and you say, and we did other stuff, and you move on to kind of the next